When I see you dancing, I'm like, hola, 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 hola. With your move fancy, make me wanna hola, 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 hola. I got your attention, spending that moolah, 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 moolah. I'm a drop poppin' pocket, swola, 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 swola.
You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristadoulou.
Alrighty, everybody, welcome back. It is February 25th, 2021, Thursday. Beautiful day out here in Massachusetts. We are looking at some nice weather, 45 degrees. We are escaping the cold, the snow, the dark parts of the year that I myself do not like, and I know a lot of other people are sick and tired of. And we are trudging our way through this NFL offseason. There is a lot going on. This was looking like a slow news day up until pretty much today. There's some big things coming out as far as quarterback situations, where people might be going. J.J. Watt's location for where he ends up going is starting to get a little bit more clear. He's been being offered some big money. There's also some other stuff going on in the college ranks right now. Notre Dame has decided that they're not going to be a part of the next installment of the NCAA football game that EA announced earlier this year. There's a lot to talk about today, a lot going on, but we're going to jump right into it with the headlining news of the day. Russell Wilson's camp has officially approached the Seattle Seahawks for a trade, from what I am reading. The Athletic has reported today a big rift between the quarterback and the team. There's a lot more to the drama than just Russell Wilson coming out the other day and saying the things he did in his interviews. It looks like the Seattle Seahawks and Russell Wilson might be well on their way into a divorce. It's not looking good between the two teams right now. It seems that there may be some differences in opinion in terms of where the offense needs to go to be successful, pieces that need to be brought in. According to The Athletic, at one point during the season, after coming off back-to-back losses to the Rams and Cardinals, Russell Wilson had a sit-down meeting with the coaching staff, the GMs, basically to try and figure out where are we going to have to take this team and what are we going to have to do to get our offense back on track. For those of you that don't remember, early on in the season, Seattle was a Super Bowl contender and a Super Bowl favorite, the way everyone was talking about them. They were excited to see the way Russell Wilson was playing. He was playing at a very high MVP caliber season. And then things started to just kind of fall off. And at the end of the day, Seahawks didn't end up getting very far. So with that, they had a meeting, a sit-down discussion. Russell Wilson did not like how the whole conversation went. It seemed that the coaching staff and GM and all of those involved dismissed everything that Russell Wilson was saying in terms of shoring up the offensive line. For those of you that do not know, Russell Wilson has been sacked a total of 396 times in his 9 seasons as a Seattle Seahawk, which is about 30 some odd more than the next person behind him in their first 9 seasons, being Randall Cunningham. And if you account for that number, 30 sacks, that's almost like a whole extra season's worth of sacks. So Russell Wilson's accounted for about 10 seasons worth of sacks in 9 years. The offensive line in Seattle has been a talk about issue for just about as long as I feel Russell Wilson has been in Seattle. Outside from the years that they were making it to the Super Bowl, the Seattle Seahawks offensive line has not been great. They were being kind of carried on the back of Marshawn Lynch being as great of a running back as he was. Obviously, Russell Wilson being as talented as he is. So it seems that things are starting to get messy. There's a lot of disagreements going on. As I mentioned, Wilson's camp has approached the Seahawks about a potential trade. 4 names that have come up here: the Jets and Dolphins, who've been linked to Deshaun Watson as well, and also the Saints and the Raiders, which is rather interesting because there's been a lot of talk about whether Derek Carr is actually going to be a Las Vegas Raider next season. They also have Marcus Mariota, who was initially in a lot of trade rumors, but it seems that the trade rumors are dying down as people have looked more into the incentives that he has for his deal. Mariota is owed $10 million as a backup, but should he be the starter and play for X amount of snaps, it winds up being a $20 million deal as opposed to a 10 in guarantees. And that's just something that some teams don't seem to want to make a commitment towards and don't feel is worth it. So very interesting that there was a lot of talk about maybe Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota being traded and leaving that team. And now all of a sudden, Russell Wilson's getting connected to the Raiders. I'm sure John Gruden would love to have Russell Wilson's skill set over there in Las Vegas. Vegas would love to have him there as well. Beyond that, when you look at a team like the Saints, all they really have is Jameis Winston. It is expected that Drew Brees is going to be retiring during this offseason. People are starting to wonder if that's the case. Why is he taking so long to retire? It seems that some things are coming out that he might not be okay with how his last game in the NFL went, and he might not actually want to be done his NFL career and leave off on such a sour note. It's very interesting, kind of the dynamic with Drew Brees and what's going on there. And then beyond that, the Jets and Dolphins, they've been linked to Deshaun Watson all offseason. They have the capital. And on top of that, the Dolphins have Tua, which kind of adds like a piece to their trade potential. So seeing a team like the Dolphins and Jets on there, not very surprising. We already have two big quarterbacks that have moved in Carson Wentz and Matthew Stafford, so you can knock the Rams and the Colts off those lists. It kind of makes the list a little bit smaller, more narrow. I am very interested to see where Russell Wilson ends up going. It looks at this point and how it's being set up and said is that it seems as though Russell Wilson may be on the move and the trade could happen sooner rather than later. That's pretty big. So my question of the day for you guys coming off this massive headline is, where do you think Russell Wilson ends up going? Up until about a week or two ago, this wasn't even a conversation. It wasn't until Russell Wilson came out and was saying, hey guys, kind of sick and tired of being sacked so much. And then when the numbers started pouring out about his, about the numbers he's been sacked for and just how his offensive line has been throughout his career, it's starting to make more and more sense now as more things start to spill out. There is some serious frustration going on with Russell Wilson. There seems to be a disconnect between what is going to make this offense successful in terms of how Russell Wilson sees it and how Pete Carroll sees it. That's some really big news. So please fire down in the comment section below. Where do you think Russell Wilson's going to end up going? If I had to pick a spot for Russell Wilson that I would like to see him go, because really at this point, it's a matter of who's who and who has the capital and who's going to be able to make a trade for him. I would love to see Russell Wilson go to somewhere like the Saints, where they're essentially a quarterback away at this point because of Drew Brees retiring, of being right back into that playoff conversation. They have all the pieces at running back, wide receiver. The defense is pretty good. They're in a really good situation to continue contending if they have a very strong quarterback, and someone like Russell Wilson, who opens up the offense that Sean Payton has been running there with Drew Brees, who is more of a stand in the pocket and throw darts all over the field kind of guy. You get somebody who can also roll out of the pocket. The Saints have a strong offensive line too. So we saw early on in the year how Russell Wilson could operate when he's not under serious duress and pressure, putting himself in a situation like the Saints, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Russell Wilson has a no trade clause. So he kind of has a say in where he ends up going. And if he's just firmly, I want to go to the Saints, I mean, I have a hard time seeing how he doesn't end up going to the Saints. I would love to see him there. I think that offense would just be so powerful, so hard to stop, would instantly make that NFC South a much more competitive division. So I'm excited to see kind of what happens with Russell Wilson there. So again, question of the day, where do you think Russell Wilson's going to go? Fire it down in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think. Beyond that, continuing into the offseason free agency stuff going on, it seems as J.J. Watt is starting to really narrow down his teams. Up until about last week, he was seriously considering the Browns, but outside of that, it looks more and more like the three teams emerging as his favorites to land are going to be the Green Bay Packers, the Tennessee Titans, and the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Bills have been someone that pundits have been saying for a little bit now that makes the most sense. They're pretty much a Super Bowl ready team. The Tennessee Titans kind of surprised me. There's news as to the biggest, most lucrative deal he's been offered is going to pay him somewhere around 15 to 16 million per season. I have a feeling that's coming from Tennessee because, albeit Tennessee is a playoff contender, when you look at a team like the Bills and Packers who are playing in Championship Sunday before the Super Bowl, those are two teams that I would see are the better fits for him and put him in a better position to get himself into into the opportunity to win himself a ring. So I could see him more towards the Packers and Bills. The Titans, I'm assuming, is probably the team that has offered him the most money. But I mean, whatever team that gets J.J. Watt is going to be in such a good spot, man. He is just so damn good. And, I have a hard time arguing against anyone going after him. I'm surprised there aren't more teams trying to pitch in for his services. But again, at the same time, he wants a ring. So it really kind of narrows down the criteria as to where he would end up going. But I mean, J.J. Watt, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. only player with 20 sacks or 20 plus sacks, and 10 plus passes defensed in a season. Obviously, during that time back in the like early to mid 2010s, JJ Watt was going by that JJ SWAT moniker, where he was batting down passes left and right at the line of scrimmage. And on top of that was the sack machine when he was in his prime. And I mean, JJ Watt still just brings so much potential to any team he goes to. It'll be huge for whatever team picks him up in their opportunity to push towards a Super Bowl. And like I said, Packers and Bills make the most sense to me if I was to put him somewhere. There's obviously the interest in playing with his brothers in Pittsburgh, but I think that seems less and less likely, like it's going to happen, just with Roethlisberger sounding like he is going back to Pittsburgh based off of what's been said with him. And the GM saying he does want to have Ben Roethlisberger back. It's just a matter of the money at this point. He did have a meeting with Art Rooney on Tuesday about that. So it does sound like Roethlisberger's back there in Pittsburgh. So who knows? But if I had to pick a spot, the Bills seem like a good place for him to go. It keeps him in the AFC. The Bills are, a pass rush away from really contending in that Super Bowl. The biggest knock to them was just that they weren't able to really slow down Patrick Mahomes. If they're able to do anything similar to what the Buccaneers did in the Super Bowl, the Bills maybe end up winning that game because they're not being pressured so much to just throw the entire game, falling behind against the Chiefs. In the talks of big money and moves and things like that, the NFL and Disney are in a little bit of a kind of a lockup right now, kind of figuring out where all this money's going to go. The NFL, such a massively profitable league, billions and billions of dollars being thrown around. It sounds like the NFL is asking for about $3.8 billion from Disney to be airing their games on ESPN and ABC. Now, to have you understand, the Disney platform as a whole, they own a lot of things you might not even realize. They are the parent owners of Disney and ABC, two big networks that air games for the NFL, and they own a lot of other things too. Now, Disney's already paying $1.9 million to be able to air their games on those networks. This was something that was signed back in 2011 for TV rights deals, and the NFL's kind of working on restructuring the deal and signing an extension with them. So that's about 100% increase, or is 100% increase at that point. A lot of money being thrown around by Disney in terms of just like everything that they've been doing. Like I said, Disney owns a lot, probably a lot more than you realize. They are a very large parent company to a lot of networks. And it's just interesting to see a bunch of rich dudes going around saying we want more money. And on top of that, Disney's paying them, like I said, $1.9 billion in the year in the deal that they're currently in. That's about double what the next network behind them is paying. And I feel that the NFL is looking at this like, okay, Disney, you have a lot of money. We want some of that pie. And I mean, like, it's at this point, it's just a bunch of old whites going back and forth, arguing over whose pocketbook is going to be bigger at the end of this deal. The NFL is, again, spearheading that $3.8 million. Disney's kind of saying, whoa, relax. Like, why are we all of a sudden doubling the price hike? You guys had lower viewerships this past season. For those of you that did not know, this was the lowest watched Super Bowl this past year in the last 10 years. There has been some ratings decline, but the argument with that is, are people really watching television as opposed to streaming? Streaming as a whole is up about 50% over the last year, as opposed to how TV viewership seems to be on the steady decline. A lot of people are moving over to the internet, watching games in other places. It's a weird thing. And I mean, just to see how much the NFL makes and to see the amount of money they're asking for from people to be able to, to stream their games or to air their games on networks is just unbelievable, and just shows the power that the NFL has as a league in this entire football world. But again, $3.8 million on the line there. Keeping on the topic of money, the Bucs GM came out the other day during an appearance on the Rich Eisen show on Tuesday, stating that he would be very interested in potentially re-signing Brady to an extension beyond the deal that they're currently working on. For those of you that do not know, Brady did sign a 2-year deal when he went to the Buccaneers, $25 million per year for $50 altogether. His deal is set to expire at the end of next season. Obviously coming off a big Super Bowl win, his 7th of his career, the 2nd for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers team as a whole. So, I mean, you look at Brady's body of work, why wouldn't they re-sign him? Honestly, you'd have to be stupid not to re-sign him. Any team at this point that maybe looked at Brady last year and opted not to go after him is probably kicking themselves for not actually not drafting him, trying to make a push and signing him. So, with that, Brady did come out and say that he himself, he's actually thinking of going beyond the 45 mark. Brady's 43 right now, going into his 44th year of life. I mean, if Brady plays beyond 45, he's probably playing until he's 46, 47, 48. And I mean, I would be shocked to see any drop off in play. He didn't look like he dropped off at all last year. I mean, everyone saw how good he looked. Granted, the early part of the season was it a little bit shaky in Tampa Bay? Yeah, but I mean, so wasn't every other offense in the league. You have no preseason, no training camp, no real way to, get any kind of gel or chemistry going on, especially when you're bringing in a quarterback, one of the most important, if not the most important position on the NFL field. You got to be able to have that time to put in the reps with your teammates and really, not only learn the playbook, but be able to apply the playbook on the field as a group and as a unit. So you saw how it ended up going. They lost that game to the Chiefs, went into the bye week, and they never looked back, never lost another game the remainder of the season. That offense with Brady at the helm, Chris Godwin is potentially gone. Antonio Brown is also going into free agency. You have to believe that the Buccaneers are going to look to either bring back Godwin, maybe bring back Brown. They have Scotty Miller. Gronkowski is going to be a free agent for the first time in his career. He only had a 1-year deal left on his contract. So, I mean, there is potential for some pieces to move, but if they bring the majority of those pieces back, I mean, Chris Jones is still, Ronald Jones, not Chris Jones. Ronald Jones is a very serviceable back. He still has a deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Leonard Fournette is probably going to be gone just based off how well he did in the final stretch of the season. Somebody's probably going to offer him a fairly large contract, enough that probably wouldn't seem like it would make sense for the Buccaneers to sign. I mean, so there's potential for pieces in the offense to move, yes, of course. But if they just reload that offense, Brady looked so good, and they're going to actually have a preseason. They're going to have a training camp. They're going to be able to, keep the ball rolling. It's going to put them in a really good spot to, push themselves all the way deep into the playoffs next year and maybe even back to the Super Bowl. So Brady getting an extension makes total sense to me. Jason Licht he's right on the money. If Brady wants to keep playing past 45 and he likes living in Tampa, he loves the weather out there, he loves the team, he loves the atmosphere, he loves that he can be himself, why would you not extend the contract with Brady? You already won a Super Bowl in the first year you had him. You have potential to win, 2 more Super Bowls? Honestly, if we're really being honest here, would it surprise anyone if the Buccaneers made it back and won next year and won the year after that, or maybe won 2 more Super Bowls in the next 3 or 4 years if Brady's still playing at a high level? Of course not. It would be ridiculous to try and argue that point. I mean, look how good the Buccaneers look this year. They're bringing back so many pieces too. I mean, Shaquille Barrett and Levante David are going out into free agency, but one of those players is probably going to be back on the team. It's probably going to be David more than Barrett because Barrett's younger and he'll probably command more money. For me, it would make more sense if they would keep David and let Barrett go and then maybe try to replace Barrett with a pickup this offseason. But I mean, realistically speaking, a lot of that team's coming back. And if they want to win rings and championships, I mean, you got Brady, the biggest, winningest quarterback in NFL history. He's got the hardware. When he talks, you believe in him. He's got to be staying in Tampa Bay for at least another 2 or 3 years at this point if his play's not dropping off. To piggyback off of that, John Lynch, the GM for the San Francisco 49ers, came out the other, what was this on? I didn't even write down the day. Well, he came out within the last few days. He was on the Eye Test for Two podcast, definitively stating that he has no doubt Jimmy Garoppolo will return as the 49ers quarterback for the 2021 season. Now, that's pretty interesting when you consider all the conversation that's gone on with Jimmy Garoppolo about, is he actually the franchise quarterback? He's gotten hurt a lot in the last couple of years, in the last 2 of 3 years. Obviously, the one season they had him fully healthy, he was able to will them all the way into the playoffs. A lot of people from the playoffs into the Super Bowl. A lot of people argue that was on the back of the defense, though, and not so much Jimmy G. He did have 8 completions in the NFC Championship game. So, I mean, there's a lot of conversation as to who was really the piece in that. Was it the dominant defense? Was Jimmy G just playing a serviceable role as the quarterback? I mean, for me, the way I see it is if the 49ers can't land somebody better than Jimmy G, it would make sense to bring him back. And look, I understand, Jimmy G's been hurt a couple of times, The 1 year he was fully healthy, he did go to the Super Bowl with them. You can argue whatever you want about that defense. And like, goddamn, that defense was good. I'm not going to argue that conversation. They were phenomenal. They had all the pressure in the world from that front seven. I mean, and you know, at this point, when it comes to successful teams in the NFL winning championships, if you got a strong front seven that can pressure the other team's quarterback, you're looking at some success. But I mean, when you look at the numbers here, the 49ers are 24-9 in the games that Garoppolo has started, as opposed to the 7-19 when he's not starting. So, you know, say what you want about Jimmy G being a franchise quarterback or not, and who carried who to the, to the Super Bowl the year before. But at the end of the day, the 49ers have won with Jimmy Garoppolo as their starting quarterback. The proof is in the numbers, 24-9. That's a very solid winning record for 3 seasons with the San Francisco 49ers. It's unfortunate that he's been hurt as much as he has been. This is one of those things where the caveat that, you know, just Jason Litch said was, you know, he plans on him being the starter as long as he's injury free. So, I mean, it's one of those things where if there's nobody available within the 49ers price range, they have Jimmy G under contract. They owe him like $2 million at most guaranteed in money. So if they wanted to get rid of him at some point, they could. Roll with him. Just roll with him. Worst case scenario, he gets hurt and you guys are no better. Well, I mean, like, would it be terrible if he gets hurt again? Yeah, of course. But at the same time, who else are you going to have? I don't see how they're going to make a play for someone like Deshaun Watson. The Texans still aren't even taking phone calls about him, so who knows if he's even going to end up moving. The rumor has it that people close to Deshaun Watson, someone specifically close to him who's a player in the league, is saying that he feels Deshaun Watson will sit out next season if the Texans don't end up trading him. So, I mean, whatever the price is going to be for Deshaun Watson, I just don't, if he even does get traded, I just don't see him going to San Francisco. Now that the Russell Wilson sweepstakes is starting to kick up some dust and people are really starting to talk about it, they don't have the 3 first-round picks that has been mentioned as what is needed to get Russell Wilson off the Seahawks. Plain and simple. Do they have the capital for that? I don't think they have the immediate capital for that. Could they give their next 3 drafts first-round picks? I mean, probably, yeah. I don't see why not. But a team like the Jets, a team like the Dolphins, where the Dolphins have Tua and multiple first-rounders, and the Jets have multiple first-rounders as well within the next couple of drafts, you'd have to believe it makes more sense that he's probably going to end up somewhere in that area. And on top of that, Russell Wilson has the clause. He can kind of decide where he wants to go. Like I said, the Dolphins, the Jets, the Saints, and the Raiders are the 4 teams that have been brought up the most. So he's not even talking San Francisco 49ers. So you can almost like eliminate Russell Wilson from going there. Deshaun Watson, you can't even get the Texans to pick up a phone call about him at this point because they're being so stubborn with that situation. Hopefully that gets sorted out. I would love to see Watson somewhere competent and, you know, be able to use his talent, because the Texans they're not going anywhere for the next 3, 4, 5 years. I would be shocked to see them in the playoffs. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But, you know, a lot of people would probably agree the Texans are in a tailspin right now, and it's not looking like it's getting any better anytime soon for them. And that's kind of everything going on as far as the league news goes. And for like the big quarterback names and whatnot, we'll definitely keep an eye on the Russell Wilson situation. Obviously going to keep an eye on what's going on with Deshaun Watson. I'm constantly just kind of scrolling through my feed, reading what I can about it. You know, big quarterback names. This offseason is turning into a wild one. And this is kind of as expected. You know, you look back at kind of the things that were going on leading into this offseason with the salary cap issue, and, you know, this whole year's pandemic has really caused a crazy stir up in the NFL. And it all started last year in the offseason with Brady going to the Buccaneers and turning into the super team that they were. I think teams are more willing to gamble now and kind of, you know, play their cards. And, you know, if they don't like the hand that they have, I'm getting let me just go ahead and mute that up. Yeah, no, but I mean, there's so much moving going on now. People are more, I don't know, they're just more willing to kind of, you know, Jesus take the wheel and see where we go, play their cards, and, you know, build their proverbial super teams that they can. I mean, look at the Rams now. Them trading for Matthew Stafford and giving up that capital kind of puts them in a position where they're all in. They want to try and win a ring. And, you know, with the defense that they have and now a solid quarterback in Matthew Stafford, who I'd argue is somewhere within the top 7 quarterbacks at worst, It's interesting to see what this past year has kind of done to the NFL and what it's kind of inspired teams to do in terms of really taking some big risks, trading for some big names. It's exciting to see where it's going to go. I'm excited to see what happens with Russell Wilson because this was something that was on nobody's radar up until like a week ago. Beyond that, though, just switching over to some college football news, a couple of big stories that I saw come out, nothing too big, but at least worth taking note of. Justin Foster, he's the D-end of the Clemson Tigers. He actually just retired from professional football as a whole. He cited three big things being his asthma, allergies, and his battle with COVID-19 over the past year. He was diagnosed in August of 2020, and then from then on was having a very hard time dealing with the symptoms and struggling with going through treatment for months. And he basically said that it made it impossible for him to get back on the field. He feels at this point in time, he's just not in the right place health-wise, and it doesn't really make sense for him to try to get himself back on the football field, and he doesn't feel, at least within the immediate future, that he's going to be in any position to really get himself back on the football field. That's really unfortunate for him. Hopefully things work out well for him. It sucks to see someone's career cut short in such a strange way with the way the year has been. A lot of athletes have played through, asthma and things like that. As somebody myself, I have asthma, sports-induced, allergy-induced. I totally feel for him. I get it, because when that spring and fall season rolls around where allergies are at their worst, my asthma really starts to get kicking, especially, and I work out and things like that. So it's a constant battle. And he's playing football on an elite level in a big name D1 school. It's unfortunate for him, and I can only imagine how the side effects are kind of, COVID being a, respiratory illness is probably giving him a really hard time to kind of recover and reset. That's kind of something that's been in the back of my mind, as well as, with the asthma issues that I have and whatnot, what would happen to me should I ever end up with the virus, knock on wood that I don't. But, I feel for him. I wish Justin Foster the best. Hopefully things work out for him in the long run. Hopefully he's getting a good degree and he could put that degree to good use as he moves on and maybe be able to do something with that and make some big money in his life. Beyond that, one other big thing, Notre Dame has decided to say no to EA. So EA Sports, they announced, and for those of you that don't know, EA Sports, gaming company, they make a lot of big games, the creators of Madden. They also used to have a game that ended back in 2014, NCAA football. Big game. Lots of people loved it. I was a big fan of it growing up. Notre Dame has opted to keep their entire self out of the game. So they're not going to be giving out their uniforms, their likeness for the school or anything like that, at least for the iteration that's coming out, or until the NIL figures out how they're going to allow players to market themselves and, make money off their player likenesses and images. That's been kind of a battle going back and forth for the NCAA. I've been in the camp of, if a player can make money off of his name, I just find it weird that somebody's going to sit there and be like, you can't make any money off of the name that you have created for yourself. I've had people argue to me, well, the colleges are paying for their tuition and everything, and they give them the platform to make that name. But I mean, there's a lot of people that go through the NCAA who have that same platform and aren't able to make a name for themselves. So you can't really just argue, oh, well, they're being given the platform to make their name on. They still have to go out there, put in the work, and make the name for themselves. I've always been pro player on this one. I think that, someone like Trevor Lawrence shouldn't have to wait until he gets out of college to make money off of the name that he's built for himself. I mean, it seems ridiculous to me to have any grown man telling another grown man, oh, okay, you can't make money off of your name because we own you, or however the NCAA looks at that. I know it's not that simple. It's not that cut and dry. But I mean, for me personally, I just think that, players, professional, college level, anywhere, should be able to make any money off of their names, whether it be, regardless of the level. You can market if you can make money off yourself, market yourself, make that money. You only get one life. You only have one chance to make as much money as you can through your entire life. You should be able to make as much of it without anyone trying to put restrictions on your name. But outside of that, that's just about all the news that I really have to share with you guys. Slow day, not a whole lot going on in the league, just some big news coming out as far as the Russell Wilson thing is concerned. Like I said, I'll be keeping all eyes on that. I'm very curious to see where he ends up going. To kind of run back the question of the day for those of you that are watching, Russell Wilson's potentially moving. It sounds like it could be pretty soon as well. I would expect if any quarterbacks, big name-wise, are getting traded, it's going to be pre-draft, because that's where they hold the most value in teams that, might pick up someone like, Kyle Trask, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, all those guys, once they have those rookies on their team, they're going to be less inclined to pick up a quarterback through a trade or something like that. So if any of these big moves are going to happen, it's going to happen between now and the beginning of the draft. Maybe even during the draft as well. That would be something, insane to see. Big name quarterback getting moved literally on the pick at that moment in time in the draft. That would be exciting for the NFL. I'm sure they'd love to see something like that. But a lot to look forward to, a lot to kind of just keep an eye on and see as the weekend goes in. So where do you think Russell Wilson's going to go if he does end up moving somewhere? Comment in the chat down below. Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to see your thoughts on that. But beyond that, just remember to check out the show's pages. On all social media. If you go down in the description below, we have a Facebook page, a Twitter page, Instagram. You can find us all over the place. Keep in touch with us, kind of see what's going on behind the scenes and things like that, and just my thoughts on the news that's going on live as they happen. Obviously, we're only live every Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m. here on YouTube. I'm always tweeting and posting about things that are going on in between those days, and if there's anything really important enough, I like to throw it right up on here for a quick recording from you or to you guys, so you can kind of watch along and see the news live as it's happening if I deem it important enough. But again, that is all for the show. I appreciate you all for joining me today. I look forward to being back again next week on Monday at 1 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody. Thank you for watching.
When I see you dancing, I'm like, hola, 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 hola. With your move fancy, make me wanna hola, 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 hola. I got your attention, spending that moolah, 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 moolah. I'm a drop popping, pocket, swola, 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 swola.
You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristodulu.
Swola, 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 swola.